Venezuela, the electoral drill ahead of the regional and national elections of May 25th is underway. President Putin met with his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas this Saturday in the framework of the latter's visit to Moscow during Victory Day celebrations. And the Indian and Pakistani government reached a ceasefire deal after several weeks of serious military confrontations. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Venezuela, the electoral drill ahead of the regional and national elections of May 25th is underway. The National Electoral Council summoned citizens to participate in democratic exercise with the objective of familiarizing voters with the system. This drill will allow the testing of the voting machines, checking the effectiveness of the transmission media, and evaluating the technical operation and logistics of the procedure. For this purpose, the National Electoral Council set up a total of 1,187 voting centers nationwide with the intention of strengthening the democratic process in Venezuela. Earlier on Saturday, its authorities confirmed that 100% of the stations had already opened.
This is one of the usual days the electoral system of Venezuela gets us used to, a day characterized by the tremendous technical efficiency, the huge preparedness capacity to conduct a trustworthy election of the electoral system of Venezuela. This poll attaches great importance. It has very special features, as this election is two elections in one. We'll be electing the National Assembly of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, a national assembly that must walk side by side with the great changes the country needs to reach prosperity, mostly to preserve tranquility and peace. That's what the Venezuelan people wants. The Venezuelan people just wants to be at peace.
In the state of Carabobo, dozens of voters mobilized to take part in the electoral process ahead of the regional and national elections of May 25th.
Venezuela is showing that we are democratic because in reality we Venezuelans are used to this form of revolution, because it is a revolution and, well, here is the proof that there is democracy in Venezuela. We are going out to vote. They called on us and here we are, in the front row supporting this whole electoral process.
And these mega elections will be the 32nd electoral process since the beginning of the 21st century in which more than 20 million Venezuelans are eligible to vote. These elections include the renewal of 285 seats of the National Assembly, 23 governors, mayors, regional and municipal legislators, consolidating Venezuela as one of the countries with the highest number of electoral processes in the world in the last 2 decades. Throughout 2025, the National Electoral Council has organized multiple consultations and electoral processes. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, honored the Soviet soldiers of the Second World War in the city of St. Petersburg, Russia. From the Memorial Cemetery in St. Petersburg, the Venezuelan president participated in a wreath-laying ceremony to honor the fallen soldiers of the Second World War. During the event, President Nicolás Maduro highlighted the heroism of the Soviet Union in the fight against the fascist forces in Europe. In the next few hours, the head of state is expected to meet with Russian authorities as part of its agenda in the framework of the Victory Day.
Humanity is fighting against the resurgence of the nazis of the fascists. We defend the right to peace, the right to the future, to the coexistence of peoples. It is almost impossible to find an example like that of Stalingrad, of Leningrad, and that of the Soviet people who went from here to Berlin to liberate Europe, to liberate humanity.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Vietnam's Secretary General To Lam to strengthen diplomatic ties between the two nations. During the meeting, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his gratitude to the Vietnamese General Secretary for participating in the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War. Putin also emphasized that Russia and Vietnam have a long-standing friendship, which today is successfully developing in all directions and receives regular support through diplomatic channels of communication. To Lam, for his part, noted that Victory Day is a triumph of a democratic, progressive, and peace-loving people, pointing out that this victory destroyed fascism, colonialism, and imperialism and brought prosperity to humanity. And President Putin met his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas this Saturday in the framework of the latter's visit to Moscow during Victory Day celebrations. The leader of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, has appealed to Russian President Vladimir Putin over U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to establish an U.S. administration in the besieged Gaza Strip. During bilateral talks in the Kremlin, Putin also criticized Israel's renewed blockade of Gaza, saying it was exacerbating the humanitarian crisis.
Russia traditionally pays particular attention to its relations with Palestine. Our peoples are tied by a strong friendship. We are following the tragic events within the Palestine-Israel conflict with concern and empathy, which have taken the lives of more than 51,000 people. Tension is rising on the west bank of the Jordan River. The Gaza Strip is experiencing a humanitarian catastrophe in the strongest possible sense. Unfortunately, the situation is getting only more serious. I just mentioned the humanitarian crisis and catastrophe. Of course, this is only deepened by decisions to forbid even humanitarian support and the supply of the most vital products and electricity to the Gaza Strip, which raises particular concern.
In this regard, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas rejected President Trump's statements that a U.S. administration should be established in the Gaza Strip.
We reject the displacement of the Palestinian people abroad. As President Trump said when he announced that the people of Gaza must be displaced so that a new French Riviera can be built in their place. This is nonsense, of course, and we cannot accept it. We have therefore rejected it categorically and informed them that this is not acceptable to us. We have also heard recently that there is an idea to establish an American administration in Gaza. We categorically reject this and have informed them of this. Neither the Americans nor anyone else has the right to be in the Gaza Strip. We must return to the Gaza Strip, and we are capable of governing this region with justice, fairness, and love.
We now have a first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. I'm going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Palestine, the Hamas resistance movement denounced the militarization of humanitarian assistance in Gaza by the United States and called on the international community to intercede. Hamas denounced that the Zionist regime advanced in its illegal colonizing operations in taking tighter control over the territory together with the United States under the pretext of introducing humanitarian aid to the coastal enclave. According to reports, 2 U.S. companies will be in charge of entering and distributing humanitarian aid to Palestinian citizens, putting the security of population at risk. In this sense, Hamas condemned Washington's participation in the Israeli plans of displacement and subjugation through a policy of famine. And for their part, the United Nations organizations denounced the Zionist regime of Israel for carrying out a campaign of famine at an unprecedented speed in Gaza with the support of the United States. In this regard, the organization emphasized that at least 2.3 million people are facing shortages of basic supplies for survival as a consequence of the expansionist and ethnic cleansing plans implemented by Israel in Palestine. It should be noted that since their illegal entry into Palestinian territories, Israeli armed troops impose a policy of forced displacement in complicity with the United States to take over the Palestinian territory. And after several weeks of serious military confrontations, the Indian and Pakistani government reached a ceasefire deal thanks to the mediating role played by Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the U.S. Such conflict had bursted out by a gun massacre on tourists last April in India, whose mastermind culprits were allegedly from Pakistan, but rooted in decades-old hostilities. Afterwards, both sides have mounted military operations, including missile attacks. As a result, dozens of civilians have been hit to death. Meanwhile, neighboring countries as Saudi Arabia and Turkey decided to act as mediators alongside the U.S. Subsequently, the two rival nations reached a first ceasefire deal to be enforced this Saturday, while peace negotiations are still underway, with next meeting scheduled for Monday, May 12th.
The Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
The government of Nigeria reinforced $3.4 billion of emergency funding it received from the International Monetary Fund in April 2020. Authorities detailed that the financial assistance had been used to address the economic challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, despite full repayment, Nigeria would be required to make annual payments of $30 million in special drawing rights. The repayment on the loan proved the administration's commitment to meet its international financial obligations and enhance its credibility with global financial institutions. In Spain, a fire at a factory producing chemical products for swimming pools has led to the evacuation of residents of 5 coastal towns in the provinces of Barcelona and Tarragona. The factory, which stores about 70 tons of chlorine, has generated a toxic cloud that has forced the Civil Protection of Catalonia to issue an alert to the residents of several cities. Authorities have advised citizens to stay indoors, close windows and doors, and avoid the use of air conditioning. Firefighters of the Generalitat have indicated that the fire is in the stabilization phase and have managed to limit its spread to other nearby warehouses. And the world celebrates Migratory Bird Day as every second Saturday in May. The United Nations had set such date to commemorate the collaboration between the Convention on Migratory Species and the African Eurasian Migratory Waterbird Agreement. Furthermore, the United Nations established the Migratory Bird Day to raise people's awareness of the importance of preserving the bird's ecosystem. This year's campaign urged the international community to work together to create and conserve habitats and to join efforts to reduce pollution. We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, we're going to be right back with more. Welcome back. The Russian Zarubezhneft state-owned oil corporation has been working side by side with the Cuban Cupet state-owned company since they signed a 25-year oil deal in 2011 for the breakthrough of production areas in northern Boca de Jaruco, Cuba. The Russian company dedicated to exploring and operating oil fields has contributed to quadruple the annual oil production of the site over the past 5 years. Nowadays, the aforementioned enterprise have invested some $108 million to drill 30 new wells in Boca de Jaruco. Moreover, experts advanced Cuban oil reserves were about 124 million barrels of proven crude oil. In this regard, they expect to find out more on discovered offshore deposits in the northern Cuban basin. Therefore, professionals of the Boca de Jaruco joint venture harness cutting-edge technologies to pull out crude oil.
It's a very heavy oil that not being able to be extracted rising to the surface because it's too heavy and too dense.
In Brazil, the landless movement's national fair for the agrarian reform enters its third day. From Sao Paulo, our correspondent National Lemos with all the details.
Greetings, studios. This is the first day of the Agrarian Reform National Fair of the Landless Workers Movement, the MST. So far, 1,500 field workers have come here with their agroecological production from 23 states plus the Federal District of Brasilia. There are tons and tons of very diverse food in a contrast sample with the prevailing production models of agribusiness in Brazil, where production is concentrated in export commodities. Here, the MST shows that it is possible to produce food to feed the Brazilian population in a context of increase in the price of food. On the other hand, during today's day, ministers from the government of Lula da Silva will arrive. They have also done so yesterday. There are requests from the MST to settle the 65,000 peasants without land who are often on the banks of the roads, who are often resisting the rain, under the tarp, waiting for a territory to plant and live. It is not by magic that the MST produces poison-free food to feed the Brazilian population. An agrarian reform is necessary for all of this, and this is the sample brought here by the MST to Sao Paulo, the largest Brazilian city and in South America. We will continue during today's day with this coverage of teleSUR from here, from Sao Paulo, in the Parque de Agua Branca, bringing you all the information about this gigantic fair of agroecology, of resistance, and also of politics that the MST is carrying out. Back to studios.
In El Salvador, the closure of the highway to Los Chorros on the Pan American Highway caused a public transportation strike, revealing the social situation in the country. The paralysis of the public transport service forced President Nayib Bukele to decree free urban bus fares after the closure of the road to the west due to a series of landslides. Since then, bus terminals and bus stops collapsed in the capital, which caused the arrest of transportation managers and repressive actions by the government, allegedly to guarantee their operation. Experts point out that these actions taken by the government of El Salvador seek to divert attention from the current social and political situation in the country. And since Donald Trump became president of the United States, 7 migrants have lost their lives in the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. According to human rights activists and national media, 3 people have died in an ICE center in Florida, 1 in Arizona, 1 in Missouri, 1 in Texas, and another in the custody of the service in Puerto Rico. According to investigations by the media and organizations, their ages range from 27 to 55 years old, and they are known to have come from different places such as Haiti, Honduras, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Vietnam, and Ukraine. It is feared that the number could be higher due to the illegal nature of these procedures. At the same time, several migrants have been reported missing. Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng met Saturday with both U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jameson Greer in Geneva to negotiate high-stakes tariffs. Both governments highlighted their will to de-escalate levies. However, U.S. President Donald Trump posted that an 80% tariff would be right, although he underscored Bessent and Greer would make the final decision. Meanwhile, Chinese authorities advanced they would decrease taxes if Washington responded in kind. Overall, the Trump administration imposed a 140% 45 tariffs on China. As a result, the Xi Jinping government implemented at 125 levies on the U.S. In this regard, experts foresaw as the best scenario that both sides agreed on de-escalating tariffs for the sake of global trade. And South Korea's political parties are nominating their presidential candidates for the June 3, 2025 election starting this Saturday. Among the candidates, Lee Jae-myung of the Democratic Party made his presidential candidacy official and is emerging as one of the favorites after leading most of the polls, while the ruling People's Power Party shows Kim Moon-soo as its president candidate after several rounds of primaries. Well, like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on our social medias, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.